Hey everybody, welcome back to Amazon Suspension Trends. Chris McCabe of e-commerce. Chris, covering some trends that are quite alarming concerning me that I want to address in terms of believability of calls to account health, seller support, sometimes catalog teams, sometimes with Escalation team members. If you email in some appeals to Escalation teams and they call you back, as I've commented numerous times, phone calls in response to emailed appeals went from rare to occasional to quite common in the past 6 to 9 months. And I hear a lot of people just taking at face value everything they hear on these calls, or even messages that are sent to them after a call that say, look, we need time to review this, or we need additional time to review it. Just wait. And often there's no one checking back in to see if you've been waiting too long. We hear from a lot of Amazon sellers, you say, well, we've been told to wait a couple of times, but they said it would be 48 hours and now it's been 7 days. Yeah, you're waiting too long. Just because they tell you to wait doesn't mean you have to wait. You can still send in a request for an update. There's no reason not to do that unless you're planning to do it every 2 hours and spam them. Obviously, I'm not telling you to do that, but we're consistently hearing from people where it's clear that either they need to start pushing things or they need us to start pushing things. And maybe they don't want to hire us just yet and pay for help, but then they need to be doing something to push things along. You can't just accept whatever they say. It might be convenient for them to tell you to wait. Of course it is. In most cases, they don't have to actually do anything. It's a way for different members, investigators on my former teams or different staffers on other teams. It's a way for them to kick the can down the road and to delay an action on their side. Well, of course, that's in their interests. Of course, you don't want to play into their interests and let them just put you off, because a lot of people are told to wait. Then they wait 5 additional days for reasons I cannot explain to you. I think hope springs eternal, and maybe they're just hoping 1 out of 100 odds are that they'll get an answer that's positive, but they come back invariably in 5 days and tell me we've been waiting because Amazon told us to wait. Number 1, they shouldn't have waited in the first place. Number 2, they shouldn't have blindly accepted that waiting would help. Sometimes waiting just results in the same copy and paste message. I think anyone who's been a seller on Amazon for any amount of time knows that your odds are pretty high of getting a generic copy and paste message that has almost no value whatsoever every time you send something in, right? Now, sometimes it's a copy and paste message that says, hey, we figured out that this was a mistake on our side. We screwed up. You're back to normal. We reinstated you, or we cleared you of this offense, whatever. That's the right kind of copy and paste message. That doesn't happen often enough. More often, you've waited 3-4 days, you've lost 3-4 days of sales, and they get back to you and they either say, you're still waiting because we need more time to review, and they don't explain why, of course. What is that about? They're kicking the can down the road. They're delayed. They don't have their act together. They're disorganized. They want you to pay for the brunt of that gap or mistake. So I'm going to, for the rest of probably the second half of 2025 into next year, tell people, stop waiting, right? Waiting means they might not have looked at something. It might mean that they don't have their act together. It might mean it's been transferred to the wrong place. Waiting can mean all kinds of stuff. I'm not saying don't wait 2 hours after you send in an escalation email. Of course, give it a reasonable amount of time. And that could be anywhere from 2 hours to something like 2 days. The problem is I'm hearing from people who are waiting 5 days. I'm hearing from people sometimes who tell me, Amazon told us to wait 10 days for an answer. Okay, I'm sure they tell you all kinds of things. That doesn't mean you have to do it. I had somebody the other day who said they were told to wait 30 days for an answer. These are arbitrary numbers picked out of the sky by somebody who's not interested in doing their job, who's making things up, who's expecting you to swallow whatever they tell you. And honestly, you don't necessarily need to hire us to escalate that. You can, but you don't have to hire us every time for that, because even without getting professional grade help, you already understand that they might be feeding you a line and expecting you to swallow it. I'm never going to tell you to do that, because I'm going to encourage you to be sensible, proactive, active, not passive for sure, and aware that their communication history and their communication style is one that is typically self-serving. And if they don't have an answer for you and they want to get off the hook, they'll throw whatever they can think of at you and hope that you'll go away for a while. They've been doing it for 5, 10, maybe 15 years. Back to the time that I was at the company. Back in those days, it was a little easy to fix this stuff. Now, where teams are this disorganized, discombobulated, they're kind of hoping that a certain percentage of people accept what they say and go away and don't come back for a few days, and maybe it magically works itself out. Well, if you've heard my voice before, if you've sold on Amazon before, if you've been a different Amazon event for brands, doesn't have to be our Seller Velocity conference that we just did. Could be any time. You probably know that skepticism is healthy in this area. You kind of know that you have to kind of keep your finger on the pulse. We do work with numerous brands that sometimes are working with other service providers, let's say, or other consultants, other members of the community who are helping them with certain things, who encourage them to pursue certain paths that involve just following what Amazon tells you is the situation, which assumes that the information you get from Amazon messages or from calls from any of these internal teams assumes that information's accurate. And if the information is accurate and you confirm it and you verify it, then you're not assuming anything, which I would recommend. But you're also fact-finding and verifying and double-checking things, which I would say is a pretty healthy mindset for an Amazon brand these days. And it's a proactive way of going about managing your brand on Amazon. Now, if you've hired somebody else, an agency or otherwise, full service management company to do these things for you, that's fine. That happens all the time. Make sure they're doing these steps. Make sure they're not just blindly accepting what somebody at Amazon tells them. People at Amazon, whether it's SAS core management, and those people are paid to be on your account, right? You're paying a fee for service. Well, what does that mean? That means they're motivated to give you an answer. Instead of just sitting on their hands and saying, I don't know the answer, you're on your own. They're motivated to tell you something. That doesn't mean the info they tell you is going to be accurate. Make sure you fact check it, double check it, other places, get other sources. Make sure you're hearing the same thing from multiple areas. Obviously, you only have one SAS core account manager, but there are ways of pushing and prodding a bit to make sure, okay, well, we sent an external escalation and we also have an internal one from our SAS core rep. This is just one example of things that we've done with other brands. Hearing the same thing on both channels, right? Well, that probably means there's some accurate information in there. Other times they're just telling you to wait because they don't know the answer, right? At least they're telling you something. Well, check back in 72 hours. Sometimes that will result in progress. I'm not saying there's never progress after 72 hours. What I'm saying is if you're getting minimal progress after waiting 72 hours first and then waiting another 5 days after that, you've lost 8 days of sales, right? Most of the brands we work with, and I'm sure you listening out there, can't afford to lose 8 days of sales on your top selling ASIN, right? So whenever you're told to wait, for whatever reason, take it with a grain of salt, please. Talk about this stuff a lot on this channel, and we talk about it at events and conferences. Bottom line is healthy dose of skepticism is what you need. It's not a nice to have, it's a need to have if you're selling your brand on Amazon. And I don't think that will change anytime soon. Any questions on this, comments, feel free to let me know. Let us know at eCommerce Chris, and we'll catch you next time on Amazon Suspension Trends. Thank you.